just be aware that it's not just that $1,500 a month or that $80,000 payment. There's other things to consider. Welcome back, everyone, to Midweek Modern Craftsman, where this week I'm doing a follow-up episode to my initial Excavator podcast. So April 23rd, 2025, I recorded a podcast titled Making Moves, my Excavator investment, where I got into my purchase, discussed why I purchased it, what I intended to use it for, the logic behind purchasing it. So I wanted to follow up here. I had a bunch of people when we posted this to YouTube who had some questions about it, how I feel about it now that it's been 6 months, it's been a year. So I want to take some time to hop on here and discuss what that investment looks like, how I've been using it, if I would purchase it again, all those type of details. So let's get into that. My initial podcast just dives into why I purchased this, getting over the hump of the financial investment, what my intent was with it, how I intended to use it, getting more familiar with the machine, becoming more efficient with it, everything else like that, why I purchased the machine I did. So it's a 2024, I believe, Kubota KX040-4 that I purchased from my buddy Brian over at Cherry Valley Tractor in Marlton, New Jersey, where I've also purchased a B2650 tractor and a 60-inch zero-turn. I forget, it might be called a Z726 Kubota zero-turn mower, which was my first investment with them. And what's really nice about the Kubota, most of the time, most of their equipment is 0% financing. So you're not borrowing a ton of money with a high interest rate. What you do have to have when you purchase it is some sort of insurance on the equipment. You can either go through Kubota. For the tractor and for the mower, it was relatively inexpensive to go through Kubota. So I did that. For this, the insurance was substantial because it's a more expensive piece of equipment. You're using it more. It's more construction equipment than a mower and a small utility tractor. So they actually recommended to me I would look at whoever covers the rest of your equipment in your business, go that route, pick up insurance on it. So that's what I did. But 0% financing, I got a really good deal on it from Brian. He always helps me out. So if you guys are in the market for a Kubota or New Holland equipment, machinery, reach out to them if you're in the Marlton or South Jersey area. But I bought I believe it's a 2024 KX040-4. So when I bought it, they were releasing a brand new model, which is a KX040-5. I knew that. They were looking to unload the inventory that they had before the new inventory hit the lot. So for me, it's my first piece of equipment. It's my first, obviously, excavator. I wasn't that concerned with getting the latest and the greatest. Honestly, I was more concerned with saving a little bit of money, getting my feet wet, and the 4 had been tested. I've had at times bad luck buying the first model year, whether it's a vehicle, a dirt bike, a motorcycle, that things come out and they haven't worked out all the kinks. So for me, it really made sense to buy essentially what was a leftover, even though the new model hadn't come out. A lot of people were waiting for that. So it made sense for me. It was available. It had a cab, it had a radio, it had a hydraulic thumb attached to it. It came with, I believe, a 24-inch bucket. I bought a 12-inch bucket, and then I bought a 36-inch smooth grading bucket. And I rolled it all into the financing, 0% financing. Like I said, I had to pick up a separate insurance that I just put through my liability carrier for that. And it's just a monthly payment for 4 years for me. One of the things that got me over the hump was there is Section 179 tax deduction. So when you purchase something new with construction equipment, you can write off 100% of that cost in year one. And it's Section 179. And for me, it made sense, right? I'm going to be building my own house. I can use this on projects. If I can lower my tax burden by roughly $18,500 year one that I purchased this, I'm essentially paying for a year worth of payments, which makes a ton of sense to me. It almost is paying for itself. I can pay this equipment off in 4 years. I can use it on projects. I'm investing in myself. I'm not putting $18,500 into the government's hands to do whatever they want with. I'm keeping money and I'm investing equity in my own self, my own future, my own business by being able to spend this money. I also didn't need to fork out $80,000 to purchase this because there's 0% financing and you can still write that deduction off. So for me, it made sense. I was going to be looking into long-term rentals with my house project coming up and everything else. And this just made more sense. Yes, there's ways that I can do this that I spend less money, but it's money going into somebody else's pocket. I'd rather invest and put equity in my own self. So again, KX040-4 2024, I believe. The idea behind this was just an investment in myself, creating efficiencies for myself. I knew I have some projects that I can use on, obviously, my own property. So I can't really give you a huge review on this excavator versus other excavators because it's the only excavator I've really spent any time in. But I really enjoy it. I've used it a ton at this point, for me, a ton. I've done all the maintenance to date on it. It's been on my property. It's been on jobs. I've used it to dig. I've used it to plant trees. I've used it to clear land. I've used it to get rid of trees. I used it to remove a ton of concrete, to do grading, to dig footing. So for me, I've used it a ton. It's been paying for itself. It makes sense. And I've really enjoyed the purchase. I don't have any issues with the machine itself. There's times I could use a bigger machine. There's times I could use a smaller machine. So for me, and the intent behind purchasing this excavator was that it's the middle of the road. It can do a lot of things good. It doesn't, there's jobs where a bigger excavator would certainly be more capable and make the job go quicker. But there's also jobs like the porch that I was just doing where a smaller excavator probably would have fit the bill from a maneuverability standpoint, and maybe I didn't need the full capacity of the 40. So it fits right in between where I don't need to own two. Yeah, ideally you'd have a smaller excavator, maybe a 33 and then a 57. But for me, with what I do, it just doesn't make sense. I can't be spending, $200,000 on equipment that I'm using not for my full-time job, right? I'm a carpenter. I'm a remodeling contractor. That would not be a wise or a smart investment, in my own opinion. So let's get into the costs of the excavator. I think I paid around $80,000 for it. My monthly payment comes out to around $1,500, I believe. That's just paid directly through Kubota. That was for the purchase of the unit, the hydraulic thumb. I have the angle blade. I don't have the tilt and angle blade. That'd be really nice, but it was another $10,000. And being that I didn't know what I was getting into, I've never owned an excavator before. They had this model on the lot that I was getting a really good deal on. It didn't make sense for me to get that. I can see where that tilt blade would be very, very convenient and handy, especially when grading, when backfilling. But I've done okay without it. It would be a really great addition, but there's a lot of excavators that don't have that. And for me, again, this really fit the bill. I also have maybe $150 in insurance costs monthly. I have to maintain that insurance at least through the life of the loan. So I have to add that cost onto the excavator from a monthly cost. The other thing is making sure that if you're going to be transporting it, you need a trailer, right? So I have a utility trailer, an equipment trailer that I use that has a 16,000 gross vehicle weight rating. Wasn't very expensive, maybe $4,500 used. I didn't buy. I was looking into a brand new trailer, $10,000, $12,000. And again, to me, how much am I going to be using it? How much does it make sense? I found a used one that has all the capacity that I could ever use. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but it fits the bill. It was $4,500. It made sense. I didn't have to do too much to it. I probably could throw a couple new tires on it, but heavy duty fits the bill. Made more sense than me dumping out another $8,000 for a new trailer. Again, just trying to be as smart as possible. How much do I need to spend? What makes sense? How much am I going to be moving this? Or is that trailer just going to sit for the most part? I also need to be able to move around my tractor at times. I have a dump trailer that I can move the tractor in. Technically, I can put the excavator in my dump trailer, but it gets real sketchy because I can't place the load where it needs to be. So, from a safety perspective, now I can just resolve the dump trailer for waste, for picking up bulk materials, for demolition, and I don't have to empty that to be able to move my tractor or my excavator, and it's safer and it's easier. So these are all things you have to consider. You have to consider that you need your I'm under 26,000 pounds, so I don't need a CDL, but you need DOT med card. So understand that you need that. Understand that your registration needs to be close to 26,000 pounds if you're pulling a 10,000 pound excavator and you have a 10,000 pound truck. Right. I think my trailer's rated for 15,999 or something like that. My truck's rated for 10. Anytime you're over 26,000 pounds, you need a CDL. So you have to make sure you're under that. But my registration's more on my truck. It's a few $100s more each year. Now that I bumped my registration up to be able to tow that, your insurance will more than likely go up. So you just have to understand it's not just the cost of the excavator, it's the cost of everything that comes along with it, the maintenance, the fuel. So just be aware that it's not just that $1,500 that a month or that $80,000 payment. There's other things to consider. What am I using this for? Initially, clear a bunch of property, get rid of a bunch of trees. I was looking into long-term rental. Did long-term rental make sense? Did investing in myself make sense? Investing in myself makes sense. There were jobs where I would rent an excavator. I'm not necessarily right now marketing that I'm doing excavator work. I'm using it on my own jobs. I'm the only one operating this excavator. I use it on my own property. I use it on my own jobs, but I'm not doing demolition or excavation work for other contractors. So make sure that you're covered from an insurance perspective for what you're doing, right? I'm not doing trenching. I'm not doing utility work. I am not doing excavation for other contractors, digging basements, stuff like that. So make sure that you're covered from a liability insurance perspective. But for me, it's grading, it's footings for the deck that I'm on. The project I'm on now with the porch, there was 30 tons of concrete, slab, and buried concrete in the backyard that I removed and took out of there. So using it for that, getting rid of trees, rough grading, bringing in material, fill. The idea for me is just to be able to self-perform as much as possible. So on this job, again, I delivered it. I removed all of this concrete and then I set rough grade for our mason. I also dug all the footings because they were a spread footing. So I did that. We put a bunch of stone in underneath where the porch is going to be. Again, we set rough grade, we removed topsoil, and I used it for all of that. And I could not have done that without that. Yes, I could have rented something, but I would not have been able to do this. It would have been a lot of work to do this without that. Again, maybe a smaller piece of equipment from like my tight constraints where I was working would have been easier, a little more delicate, but at the end of the day, I still made it all work and it was fine. I anticipate using this a lot on my own property, right? We're going to be building a house. I need to do all the excavation there. A bigger piece of equipment would be great. We're doing a crawl space, but again, I need something that can live in both worlds. On remodeling projects, on smaller projects, I need to be able to get into backyards. I need to be able to tow it, right? The excavator is a little under 10,000 pounds. It's the biggest Kubota unit that I can tow legally with a 2,500 on a tow behind trailer without my CDL. So if I were to go up to the next size, I'd have to have all of those considerations. I'd either need to pay somebody to transport it. I need to get my CDL. That does not make sense to me at this point in my career or my life. So all things to consider. But I also picked up a used tilt grading bucket. So it hooks up to the hydraulics where the thumb is. I only have one circuit for the hydraulics. There is a bypass and a shutoff valve. So if I'm using the tilt bucket, it's not a rotator bucket, it's just a tilt bucket. But if I'm using that, it tilts left and right. Really great for grading, really great for shaping the earth. But I can't use my thumb. I can't use the tilt function and my thumb at the same time. So if I want to switch between the two, I have to switch the hydraulic flow rate inside of the cab, but then I also have to shut 2 bypass valves out on the loader or on the arm of the excavator to be able to use the thumb. So I can use the thumb with the tilt bucket, but I can't tilt at the same time. There's an option to get a secondary hydraulic line or 2 secondary hydraulic lines out there and then have another thumb switch inside the cab. Right now, again, doesn't make as much sense to me. If I'm using the tilt bucket, typically it is for grading work or shaping work, and I'm not necessarily removing material at the same time, so I don't necessarily need to use the thumb a lot. It would be convenient, but right now it's not necessary for me. So I got this tilt bucket, which was something that I wanted. I probably would have got like a 42-inch tilt bucket for the size of machine that I have, but they're like $6,500 or more to get a good one. And I don't do enough work that I thought it made sense. I wasn't going to roll that into the financing. I didn't want to spend that type of money, and I figured I'd make do without it. So I bought a 36-inch smooth bucket just for material, rough grading, moving, if it's stone, wood chips, mulch, dirt, whatever it is. It's a lighter duty bucket. It's not as heavy as the digging buckets. It doesn't have teeth. But I bought that. And then I was on Facebook Marketplace and I found this Work Brow, which is the brand that Kubota sources their buckets from. Really great brand. And they were selling it for $1,500, and all it needed was a hydraulic hose, which was $100. It's like a $6,000 bucket. It's 39 inches. I probably would have got 42 inches had I had the choice, but 39, close enough. Got the hydraulic on it fixed. Works amazing. So I'm $1,600 into that, and I love that bucket so much. It's so nice for grading. The project we're on now, there's a pretty extreme slope in the backyard from where the porch is and from where the existing patio was and the new patio is. So that's all level, and then it drops off pretty substantially. So I was able to use that tilt bucket and keep my piece of equipment in the same location, and then just adjust the tilt to grade everything out, and saves a ton of time. Maybe it's skill set, maybe it's experience, but it would have been way harder and taken me much longer with just a standard bucket. And I've seen people do it and they're just skilled operators. I'm not there yet, but the tilt bucket makes it so much easier. I'd be tough. I think if I spent $6,000 on a new one, I'd be happy with it, but I'm much happier spending $1,600 on this thing, and it works really, really great. So the way people ask me how I'm charging for this, right? So I understood from the outset that I wasn't going to be in this machine 8 hours a day. I knew that from a cost perspective, it was more an investment in me than a way for me to make money. It's a way for me to save money on my own build. It's a way for me to make my jobs go smoother and more efficiently with needing less labor, and obviously saving my back. But I wasn't buying this as a way to make me money in the sense of, hey, I got to put a person in this machine and they need to be in there for 6 hours a day, 5 hours a week for me to be able to offset the cost. I was well aware that that wasn't going to be the case. That's not the business that I'm in. So I was never quite concerned with covering the cost of this, right? I need to pay that $1,500 a month plus, let's just call it $2,000 a month with all of the fees. I need to cover $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year to be able to cover the cost of this. Well aware that there's months that that's going to happen, and there's months that I'll cover way more than that. But there's also going to be months that I might not spend an hour in this thing, and I'm okay with that. So understand that, when you're going into it as well. What I worked out, the way that I operate in all my work as T&M, is I figured what a rental fee would be for somebody to use these on their jobs. And I just work that into my rate. And my rate is slightly more than a rental because I'm not in the business of rental. It's my equipment. Again, I want to cover the cost. It's brand new equipment. I have to cover the cost, the liability, transportation, all of that stuff. So what I do is I take my hourly rate that I charge for myself, and then I add a fee on top of that for when I'm in the equipment. With my projects also, they're smaller. So I'm not, unless it's a bigger job, I'm not just going to sit in that equipment for 8 hours a day and just run that excavator. So I have to understand that that fee has to be big enough to cover, hey, maybe I was only in there for 4 hours today total, but I was on the job doing stuff for 8. So I want to make sure that my hourly fee, when I'm attributing values to that within my budget, that covers, hey, I might not be operating that equipment for 8 hours a day, right? I'm getting out, I'm checking grade, I'm removing stuff, right? We're backfilling footings, we're digging the footing, we're setting the footing, we're setting up string lines. I'm not necessarily operating that for 8 hours a day, but I'm got to make sure that I cover that equipment being planted there. So my number, my hourly rate that I put on top of that, say it's $75 an hour on top of my rate, is how I come up with how I charge for that. So if I work for 4 hours a day on that, I can charge my hourly rate plus maybe $75 an hour for the equipment, and then that covers that. And you think about, hey, doesn't seem like a lot, right? An $80,000 excavator, if you're charging just to be in that, not your labor rate, but an additional $75 a day, say it's 8 hours a day, say in a week, you got 40 hours. That's, excuse me, I messed my math up. So I'm going to say 75 times 40. That's $3,000 for the week that you're covering that cost. And obviously, I just said, right, I'm not in it for 8 hours a day, but if I were, or I'm covering, that's $3,000. So say 52 weeks in the year, that's $156,000. So that $75 an hour is more than covering what I need to have that on the job, right? If I was $150,000 just to have that equipment on a job for 52 weeks a year, plus my labor rate and my markups on top of everything, more than covered. Doesn't seem like a lot, but again, I kind of base that off of what a rental fee would be, right? And also the aggravation of having to go and pick up, having it delivered, the downtime, everything associated with that. So that's how I'm covering my costs when I have that on a job. It was on the job for 3 weeks. I didn't charge my customer for 3 weeks worth of excavator work. I only charge them for the time that I was in the equipment, and I break that out in my billing. Might be right, might be wrong. I'm sure other people wouldn't do it that way, but I understand that this is how I make money and how I invoice and how I bill and budget for everything on my projects, and the numbers check out and they make sense. And again, if I were just to sit in that excavator for 8 hours a day, I'd be more than covering the cost of the excavator, about 2x that in a year. So I'm more than happy with that. And again, I'm creating efficiency for myself that's pretty remarkable, the amount of work that I can do in that without anyone else there. Even removing 30 tons of concrete essentially by myself in 2.5-3 days was pretty remarkable. So I'm making up elsewhere with that. So yeah, to say that I am happy with my purchase would be an understatement. It's been enjoyable. It's been fun to learn something new. It has the potential to make me money, although I didn't necessarily purchase it just to make me money. I purchased it to create a lot of efficiencies, to create some tax strategy for myself, and to invest in my company rather than paying money to somebody else. So I'm super happy with it. Again, I think there's times where I could use a larger piece of equipment, and there's times that I could use a smaller piece of equipment, but I don't do this. I probably don't do this enough. I definitely don't do this enough to even have one excavator, let alone two. But super happy with it. Happy that I can transport it legally. Everything's on the up and up, checked out. But for me, it just creates a ton of freedom. It allows me to self-perform so much. It allows me to manage my schedule. It creates so much efficiency that I can get this piece of equipment there whenever I need it. If I need to come back, right? Like if I need to come touch something up, or I need to bring it back because we changed something, it's not, hey, I need to absorb another cost of getting a rental. I need to have it delivered. I need to go pick it up. I need to have it back in 12 hours, or else I'm going to pay another $500 in rental fee. So it really does make a lot of sense for me. I have ran everything on it from My 36-inch grading bucket handles it fine. It's a lighter gauge bucket, so when you're swinging that out, it's not a huge deal depending on what material you have in it. I was moving some sandier soil with that, and you have to be careful when you're getting out with the bucket and swinging it. It'll either keep wanting to swing or it can get a little bit tippy. So you just have to be careful with a 10,000 pound machine when you're running a bigger bucket of that size. I've dug with the 24-inch bucket, handles it fine. It can struggle some in rockier, harder materials with the bigger bucket, but I've never had any issues where it's, I need more power to dig with this thing. I'm not digging in rocky soil. I'm not digging in shale. I haven't come across that. Most of the soil that I've dug into, yeah, some's been hard, but nothing crazy. I have a 12-inch bucket, which I actually use a lot for demolition work for all of this concrete slab. Somebody was asking me, why are you using such a small bucket for that? And for me, when I'm using the thumb, whether it's removing logs, tree work, roots, the concrete, the 12-inch bucket just grabs with the thumb much better, and it fits and meshes with that much better than the 24-inch bucket. When you're getting into bigger, once the concrete's broken up, yeah, the 24-inch bucket works great because you can fit more in the bucket. But for demoing that concrete, the 12-inch bucket, for moving logs, the 12-inch bucket, it grabs so much better with the thumb and holds things much better, and it's more maneuverable. It's less weight. You can carry more weight because you don't have a couple extra 100 pounds in the bucket that you're swinging out. So 12-inch bucket, I've used the 24-inch bucket, the 30-inch 36-inch. I have the 39-inch grading bucket that hooks up to the auxiliary hydraulics. Love that. Handles that fine. I've done some light digging work with that. Ton of grading work with that, handles it perfectly fine. I also, on this job, I rented a small hydraulic hammer, worked amazing. I demoed some cast in place concrete stairs that I've ran into before when I've done decks, that I have tried everything from drilling to renting a jackhammer, electric and hydraulic, and trying to break that apart and then put that into a dumpster or my dump trailer. And it's been an absolute nightmare, to the tune that I've just gotten it below the deck and then said I'm leaving in a place because I can't spend any more time on this. So I rented a hydraulic hammer that was actually fitted to a smaller excavator than mine. I believe a 33 or a U, which is the zero clearance Kubota, so it doesn't have any tail swing. It doesn't extend on the tail. Maybe it's a U34, 33. It's one size smaller than mine, and it handled that hammer fine. The hydraulic hoses got hot. It definitely uses the pumps and everything, but handled it fine. I don't know if it's not a super heavy duty excavator, so I don't think I would want to run that on my machine all the time. It's going to loosen everything up. It's a lot of wear and tear on the machine. If I were making a ton of money with this machine, sure, beat it up. That's what it's for. I'll buy another one, but I want to hold on to this for a while. I don't want to use and abuse this. So for me, if I run into a job where I need to rent that, great, I'll use it, but I don't think that I would purchase that. What other implements would I like for it? Tough to say right now. They make a ton. Honestly, the only thing right now that I could see probably being handy, just other than different size buckets, like from my perspective, right, a tilt rotator bucket would be dope, but that would be the cost of a machine and it wouldn't make any sense. I'm just not there. But a set of pallet forks that could go on this just for the job, just for moving things, being able to put that in front of the machine. Because right now, even, just moving material around, being able to throw it on pallets and use that to move it, it's tough with the bucket. It's tough to rig stuff onto the bucket. You just don't have the throw that you need to be able to lift it up. So that would be kind of nice. Even if you're loading plywood or something onto the roof and you're sheathing a roof, you could throw a couple sheets on there, pop that thing right up on the roof and work off of it. I think that that's a custom attachment that people make to fit onto the quick connect hydraulic coupler, which would be super dope. So that might be something that I look into, especially with our build, just moving stuff around, self-performing, working by myself a lot. I think that would be super convenient, lifting up walls, moving materials, just it'd make my life a lot easier. But other than that, nothing pressing for me. I think I have everything that I need to. Maybe a 48-inch bucket at some point just for moving materials, right? Whether it's stone, piles of soil. I think that would probably be something else that I would get. It's a big bucket to run on this machine, so you got to be careful with it, especially as you're getting it out. But that's really the only two things that I see myself wanting for this that at some point I'll get that I don't have right now. But I don't really have many cons for this machine. For me, it's a big piece of equipment. It's around 10,000 pounds. So if you're looking to get something that's going to delicately walk across a lawn and not do any damage, this wouldn't be it. This will tear your lawn up. You'd have to use mats if you didn't want to. Even if you jump turn it, it's just heavy. It has tracks. It's going to tear stuff apart. So that would be the size of this machine for jobs that you're really looking to not create any damage to the soil. This would be a con for me. Not, a smaller machine, a 33, would cause less damage and be a little bit more delicate. Making sure that you have somewhere to store it, if you can transport it. Maintenance, if you're not handy. Parts on these things can be expensive, even little parts, hydraulic couplers that you don't think are going to be that expensive. You're spending a couple $100 on because it's all specialty stuff. So those are really they'd be the only cons to me. Maybe, again, a secondary auxiliary line so I could keep the thumb functioning with the tilt bucket functioning at the same time. But that's something that you can get. That's something you can get from the factory. You can get them to put on. Just with my setup, I don't have it right now. But honestly, no, it's a great size. It does a lot of things good. It doesn't, there's jobs that are too big for it. There's jobs that are too small for it. It fits the bill as a one size fits all. I believe it is their most popular selling size and has been for a very long time. And I think a lot of that's because it's the biggest excavator that you could put on a trailer and tow behind a 2500 without needing your CDL. So it has a pretty good capacity, and I've done a lot of work with it. I've removed a lot of trees with it, dig up the roots with the 12-inch bucket, then just push the tree, topple it over. At that point, lift the tree up to wherever you're breaking down firewood, cutting off root balls, all of that stuff. Very capable, much easier than other routes that I've taken to remove and clear stuff. So really great. I've cleared a lot of brush. I've cleared a lot of bushes, dug stuff out of the ground that I didn't know was under the ground. I've done a ton of work with this thing in a short amount of time. So yeah, I've been very happy with it. I guess, right, the other con could be that it's expensive. It's expensive. $2,000 a month for somebody can be a lot of money with a small business, right? That's 24 grand a year. So you have your capital tied up in something. But for me, again, the tax saving through Section 179 just makes a ton of sense for me to keep that money in my pocket and to not pay taxes on the full price. The depreciation of this machine just made a lot of sense for me. So would I buy this again? Absolutely. In a perfect world, I probably own a 57 and like a 33, but I don't even have any way of moving a 57. I think that's like the ultimate size if you're doing substantial work, but it's still relatively nimble. But again, there's never a perfect setup. There's never a perfect scenario. I feel like there's always a time where you need something bigger, and there's always a time when you need something smaller. And being that I don't do this for a living, I'm not an excavator. I'm not a site worker, utility contractor. So this is just creating some efficiencies on my job, making my life easier, and saving a little bit of money with some tax strategy. I would absolutely buy this again, and I'm very happy with it. I'm very happy with the buying experience through Cherry Valley. They have always been great to me. Brian was heading on vacation while I was looking to get this unit delivered and handled everything. I came in once and signed some paperwork for 10 minutes, and other than that, they had this thing delivered to my house with a bow in a few short days. So yeah, everything's been great. 0% financing is amazing. Right? I get to keep money in my bank account, pay it monthly, no interest on it. Really makes a ton of sense. If there were a high interest rate on this, I would probably entertain buying something used, because you can save a ton of money on a low hour machine right off the bat. And to me, with the amount of work, that would make sense. But then, right, I'd also have to part with 50-60 grand cash immediately, and I would still get the tax break from that, but then I can't keep my money invested. And with what the market looks like now and 0% financing, I can keep my money in the bank. I can make 8-10% interest on that money and pay for this monthly, and that makes the most amount of sense. But if you were looking to buy something and you were not, whether it's not a Kubota brand, it's something else, and you were going to have to buy with a higher interest rate, I would consider used. Find somebody with a low hour machine who bought it for a job and doesn't use it anymore. Maybe have a mechanic look at it and save yourself the money and the interest rate. But that's just my 2 cents. Again, I can't really speak. I'm not a professional operator. Everything on this thing has worked well. Everything, the build quality is great. Knock on wood. I've had 0 issues with it. A couple of hydraulic lines that loosened up a little bit that I snugged up, but everything's been good. Maintenance has been fairly simple and fairly straightforward. No issues other than one time I left it running and I forgot to take the key out of it, and I fully drained the battery on it and just burned through an entire, I don't know, 6-7 gallons worth of fuel that was left in there. But that's rookie move on my part. I forget what I was doing. I think I was loading up or unloading it off the trailer, and it was idling. And actually, I know exactly what happened. It was idling. I was supposed to get home because somebody was dropping Tilly off from a play date at the park, and they arrived early, and she must have known that I was at her property next door. So they dropped her off, and I had headphones on, and they dropped her off. And I was like, all right, let's get you back home. So I just had music in my headphones and loaded up the trailer, threw my gloves in there and just pulled away and just left the excavator running because I didn't hear it. But lesson learned, had to jump it. It's been starting up fine since then. So no real harm or foul other than I probably gummed up some diesel in the whole system. But yeah, love the machine. If you're interested in purchasing something, I think if you're a small business, you can make money with it. If you want, you can just create a lot of efficiencies for yourself that you should charge appropriately for. And for me, as a small remodeling contractor, having a handful of jobs that we're doing demolition, a little bit of digging, some grading, footings, stuff like that, tree removal, brush removal, it's a no-brainer, and it can make you a lot more money, and there's a ton of tax savings and strategy there. And again, you're investing in yourself rather than somebody else through a rental. So I would highly recommend it for anyone. But if you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to me, Tyler, at trghomeconcepts.com. Also, a handful of people have reached out. I'm still doing consulting. I just emailed somebody back now. Been a little bit busy with traveling lately for work. I've had a ton of stuff to do through the Contractor Coalition Summit, through Anderson Windows, Fine Home Building. I feel like we had a wedding out west, so I've been traveling a ton. So I haven't really been broadcasting or advertising that I'm still doing consulting. But if you are interested in any sort of consulting, you want to go over your numbers, how I make money as a small self-performing belt-on contractor, and you want to try and dial in your system so that you don't have to work 80-100 hours a week. You can get paid for running around and acquiring materials. You can get paid for the back-end business end of things. You can get paid for estimating projects, all of that stuff. If you're interested in that, or you're struggling right now with just time, anxiety, having to work 80 hours a week and feeling that, you're just making ends meet, and you want to hop on a consulting call to try and figure out how we can get you out of that, shoot me an email, Tyler at trghomeconcepts.com. We can look at your numbers. We can look at your books. We can look at your system. We could look at my numbers, my books, my systems, and I can give you a hand, help you out, and create some clarity and efficiencies there for you. All right, guys and girls, that's it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, if you haven't listened to the initial podcast, Making Moves, my excavator investment, came out April 23rd. Check that one out as well. I will catch you all next week. As always, thank you. Thanks for all the support, all the emails, All the love. I'll talk to you guys next week.